Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me today. It's Alan Barry Labakan with the Rocks and Stocks News Show. Yesterday on my show, I talked about some companies that I think offer very good to exceptional value propositions. And I had mentioned that I had a lot more companies that I could talk about, but the show was getting a little long. That folks could email me for the list, and I decided to do them all one better. And today I've got a show set up where I'm going to talk about all of my picks, and I'm very excited about that. Uh, Today the big news was Federal Reserve Chairman. Sorry, give you a little housekeeping before I get started. I've got my notepad ready. I've got my crystal ball, got my energy drink all ready, and I'm very well organized. So what I'm going to do is I'll first start out talking about the big Federal Reserve meeting today, and then I'll do the various different picks. I've got them broken down alphabetically by category. The first category is my major gold miners. There's three of those. Then the mid tiers, there's four of those. Junior gold miners, uh, four of those. Several developers, and then my explorers. And in the notes to this show, I'll have them. I'll give you the time that I start each category. I don't want to do each individual company. It just takes me too long to do that. So what I'll do is I'll just break it down by category and give you the time. And then, of course, I'm going to be talking about them, giving you my elevator pitch of why I like them and looking at their stocks so you can sort of scroll your way through to find the various different companies that way. So let's get on to it. The Federal Reserve lowered interest rates by a quarter of a point today. The key reason for that cut that they gave is the jobs market. Of course, he didn't say it is in free fall or that it has been weak for a very long time. I've been talking a lot about that, and I constantly say that the government numbers that come out of the BLS for the jobs numbers have been overstating jobs for a long time, and confirmation of that can be found in the constant revisions that are never in the opposite direction. They're always revised down, never revised up. And so there is your clear evidence that they are overstating the jobs market. And by doing that, they're also overstating the economy because ultimately, where jobs go, so goes the economy. Now, if Powell was honest, he would say that they have failed miserably with their stated goal on inflation. They've been talking about a 2% goal of inflation for about 6 years now, and it was each time they talk about it, it's going to be 2 years. And they keep getting that 2 years wrong, and now they're saying again in this meeting that it would be another 2 years for it to get down to their target rate. In fact, if anything, it's going the wrong way for them. So they're failing at that miserably. Uh, and now with the cutting of the interest rates, they're basically throwing inflation under the bus. So I think that they're ready to go even further away from their stated goal. Now, I'm when I talk about their goal and the numbers, I'm talking about their understated inflation numbers that they put out. I think every American knows that the inflation rate is much higher than the stated rate from the government statistics. But even using their numbers, I think that they're currently sitting at around 3%. And with cutting of interest rates, I think that that's going to go even further higher. I think the real interest rates is probably double what they report, but that's the numbers we go with because that's what we have to talk about. And I really think that the Federal Reserve is failing on both mandates. One is to have maximum jobs employment, and the other is to stable prices. And they're not doing a good job on either of those. The jobs market is very bad. It's in free fall. And you look at all the revisions, and it hasn't been very good for a long time. And now the inflation is bad. The real inflation is worse than what they talk about. But now uh, with them cutting interest rates, and I don't think it's going to be a one-off because a quarter of a percent, even four or five of those, aren't going to help the jobs market. And so, as they do that and as it becomes clearer, I think that you'll see the market respond to that reality. It could even be tomorrow. You could see jobs numbers come out that spook the market and realize, hey, maybe they should have done more than a quarter of a percent. But again, it's a dual mandate, and because we have stagflation, they can't really fight either one, so they have to throw one of them under the bus. And they're deciding to throw inflation under the bus. How far under the bus they throw them, I think as we start seeing more data come out, it will become more realistic that maybe a half a percent is coming, and more than and several cuts. I think they're ultimately going to go back to the quantitative easing and get the gold or get the interest rates back towards the free market, free money era. Uh, Fed, he was honest in some of the things he said. He said he can no longer say the labor market is solid. Um, I immediately, when I heard that, I thought, when was it solid? If you look at the revised numbers, it hasn't been solid for well over 2 years and longer. And meanwhile, lately, it's been coming under even more pressure. Uh, and as I said, the data has been dramatically revised down, and they're probably not finished with revising the data down. Some of the things that stood out for me in the Fed press conference, he called the cut a risk management cut. Um, the risks are that the job market is stalling and the economy is going towards a recession. Of course, he didn't say it in those terms, but I think that's the reality. And by doing these rate cuts, he's also going to cause higher inflation. Uh, he did was honest again when he said that there is no risk-free path, which is code for they have no way to fight both the stalling jobs market and inflation. They have to throw one of them under the bus, and they're throwing inflation under the bus. Even by government statistics, I think we're going to start to see it going well over 3% and towards 4% and even 5% because of these rate cuts. And also that the US dollar being weaker, which the interest rate cuts will cause, will so imports will go up. And he also talked about inflation, or I mean tariffs. I'll get to that in right now. He also said something else that was accurate. He said that the mandates, the dual mandates, is are in conflict. And what he's basically admitting to is that stagflation is a growing problem that they can't do anything about. Here again, they're going to be cutting interest rates to help the jobs market and the economy. And by doing that, they throw inflation under the bus. Uh, he said that there's no evidence that foreigners are paying for the tariffs. Now, the MAGA people and the Trump supporters, they tell me, oh, there's studies that that isn't true. But those studies uh, contradict what the Fed is seeing and what logic tells you. The countries that export to the United States are not going to eat those costs. We already know that's the case. So who's eating the cost? It's going to be the corporations and it's going to be the consumers. Now they've been able to they front ran a lot of the tariffs, and so therefore they built up their inventories. Once those inventories are drawn down, then then the tariff added prices and taxes, the tariff tax will increase the price of restocking their inventories, and that will be passed down to the consumers. Now, of course, some companies will fight it off. And this is why I think that the idea that it'll be a one time thing and transitory is ludicrous because one company will try to hold off and one company will try to hold off passing it on. Another company will not. Then it'll all start working its way in a staggered way through the supply chain. And therefore, I mean, the idea that there'll be transitory is ridiculous in my opinion because ter inflation is never transitory. When has it ever been transitory since they went off the gold standard? For 50 years, it's not been transitory. It hasn't been transitory since the great financial crisis, since the pandemic. It never is transitory, and it's not going to be transitory. Uh, Something that is dishonest, as far as I'm concerned, with Powell, is that they say that they're data dependent, while not recognizing that the jobs data dots that they plot have been dramatically overstated and needed to be revised. So if you're data dependent and that's the data you're depending on, how can they say that they're even data dependent? The data, it's bad data in, bad data out. I It's just boggles my mind. The US dollar index trend is going much lower as it has broke. Let me pull that up here. I got it right here. So it has been in a bear market for all of 2025. It peaked out in January at about 110. Then it went into a steeper correction where it consistently traded below the 50-day moving average. It had sideways action for most of August and a little bit of September, and then it's resumed the correction. And now it's trading significantly below the 50-day moving average. This portends to me and predicts to me that we're going to see more of this type of an action as the Federal Reserve cuts interest rates, throws inflation under the bus, and will put pressure on the US dollar. Uh, while at the same time, let's take a look at gold. At the same time, gold has made a very important breakout. It had been basing for the summer months and created a very strong base. And now it's broken out off of that base, which was basing around the 50-day moving average, which I had pointed out many times when I was predicting that a breakout was imminent. And now we've had that significant breakout. I'm going to go to the 5 minute chart, which gives you an idea. So, right after the Fed made their announcement, it spiked up and then it was under pressure during the chat or the press conference. The what do you call that? The public addressment there. And since then, it's been firming up. And so I think that this is an overreaction on the downside. And I think we're higher and up and further to the right of this chart. Silver has also had an important breakout that I talked about before it happened, especially when it was under $35. Predicted that it was going to break above 35, and since 36, since it broke above 35, it has been on a tear and is trading well above the 50-day moving average. And it moved much like gold. Initially, it had a spike, then it had downwards pressure, and now it's coming back up. That's the short term 5 minute chart. The daily chart is much more indicative of where we are in the trend. And I think we've got a lot higher to go. $50 gold or $50 silver is in the front ahead of us this year, I believe. And then I think it sets a series of record highs. Now, the best way to play those bullish moves in gold and silver is through the stocks, the precious metal stocks, because they're offering tremendous value propositions as they have not priced in the current price of gold and silver, nor looked ahead even slightly. In fact, I would make the argument that they're pricing the gold stocks from top to bottom as if gold was a lot cheaper than it is now. So my argument is it hasn't even priced in current prices, let alone future prices. And I'm in good company and being super bullish on gold because Jeff Gundlach was interviewed shortly after the Federal Reserve meeting, and he said that he sees $4,000 gold, and he believes that 25% ownership is a sound investment allocation. So, on that note, let's get into the picks. And I'm going to start with Agnico Eagle. As always, I start with my major mining companies and I go down the list alphabetically through each category. Um, Agnico Eagle picked them in early 2024 when they were about $60 a share. They closed today at $211.18, so showed relative strength while gold was down. It was up 0.77% or $1.62. And this is indicative of why I think investors should be owning gold stocks at a much higher percentage than gold itself because it dramatically outperforms gold. While gold has gone up, let's say 50 some percent, this is up 300%. And why is it up so much? It's up so much because they are an extremely efficient gold miner. They are making record after record quarterly um, free cash flow. They're building up their cash position. They're replacing their gold that they produce each year. They're increasing their production and they're bringing down their costs. So, what that tells you is for a long term, they're going to keep on this trend of increasing production, bringing down their costs, and making exceptional free cash flow. And regardless of what sector you're looking at, I am a free cash flow guy. I think that's how you want to measure companies. And recently I've made some comparisons to the free cash flow that um, uh, Agnico Eagle is making compared to Tesla. They're making multiples of the free cash flow Agnico Eagle is than Tesla. And meanwhile, they're trading at a fraction of the valuation relative to Tesla. So I use this as an example to show how great the gold mining business is today on a free cash flow basis, but also how overvalued your Mag 7, your tech stocks, your Wall Street stocks, Bitcoin, and other things like this are overvalued relative to the gold stocks. The generalist investors are starting to come in to the gold and silver stocks, but not in a big way. They're just sort of dipping their toe in. And so for an investor that wants torque to the price of gold with not a lot of downside risk, Agnico Eagle is a very good candidate for you to consider. All right. The next one is Newmont. That was the Toronto listing, so that the prices I was quoting was in Canadian dollars, but this is in the U.S. Version of Newmont. I picked them just before they went through this golden cross when they were trading at about $44. Today they closed at $78.69. I didn't really pick them for a short-term performance, although I'm super happy when I see companies that I pick go through a golden cross and then trade aggressively above their 50-day moving average ever since I picked them. But why I like Newmont a lot right now is that they actually have seen their production decrease because they sold off a lot of their non-core mines so that they could focus on optimizing their tier one mines. And by doing that, even though their amount of gold they produced is down, their free cash flow is at record highs. I love this business plan. I think it shows a very good business plan going forward. And that's why Newmont, as they've made these efforts, is now one of the best performing S&P 500 stocks. It is how do you say, a barometer or a top of mind company for generalist investors that want to look at gold miners. And I think that this action over the last few months is a clear indication that the generalist investors, institution and retail, are starting to dip their toe in the gold stocks. And so I call it the Newmont effect. Newmont makes up 12% of the index. And that's another asset that generalists look at when they're assessing whether they want to get into gold stocks. They look at Newmont, they look at the index. And so as Newmont goes up in value, because there's such a high weighting in the index, both go up. And that gives generalist investors confidence to be looking at gold stocks like Newmont and down the food chain. Now, Agnico Eagle it is my premier gold mining stock because I think they're the best in breed when it comes to being a gold miner. The version of that in silver is Pan American Silver. And Pan American Silver has been doing very good since early 2024 as well. They were trading about $16 then. And they closed today at $48.67. That's the Canadian price. And I picked them back here when they were trading about 36. So they're up about 30% since I picked them, but I certainly did not pick them because I think that there'll be because I thought of a 30% gainer. Why I picked them is that I see the price of silver going up dramatically, going up over $50 an ounce, and then setting a series of record highs. And when they do that, I think that Pan American Silver will be a rock star performer. And that's why I picked them. Now, another thing that I picked them for is they're sitting on a lot of cash. They've got about $1.25 billion in cash and only about $750 million in debt. So they're in a very strong balance sheet. And this gives them opportunities going forward as well. Bottom line, I think they're the best in breed major silver miner. And with the recent acquisition of Mag Silver, one of the picks in the report, I'll do my pat on my back because I picked them and they went up multiples from when I picked them. And now their mine belongs to Pan American Silver. And the Juanicipio mine that is 40 was 46% owned by um, um, Mag Silver is now an asset of Pan American Silver. So it's only going to enhance their bottom line because the Juanicipio mine is a high grade, low cost producer that generates a lot of free cash flow. So firing on all cylinders, Pan American Silver, a go-to name for investors that want torque to the price of silver with not a lot of downside risk. All right. That's my major gold miners. I'm giving myself a little signal there so I know where to note in the description below this video when I finish talking about the gold, the majors. And now I'll go into my mid tiers. I've got four of those, another signal for myself. Those include Alamos Gold. Alamos Gold is my best in breed mid tier gold miner. They are much like Agnico Eagle and have performed much like Agnico Eagle in the stock performance since I picked them when they were trading at about $15 a share. They closed today at $43.24. What I love about this company is they're making records in free cash flow and they're pumping that back into bringing new production online. And what that will do is increase their production by about double and bring down their cost below the a few $100s below the average cost of the gold miners in general. And so they're using their free cash flow wisely to pump it back into the business to increase their production and bring down their costs to create even more free cash flow down the road. And that's in a nutshell is why that's my elevator pitch on Alamos Gold. And just keep watching them because you'll continue to see great news out of Alamos Gold. All right. My next mid tier is Aris Mining. This is the Toronto listing. I picked them. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here so you can see where I picked them and why I picked them. One of the key reason, of course, is always the projects, their mines, and in this case, at their Segovia mine, it is a free cash flow machine of a mine, high grade, low cost, creating a tremendous amount of free cash flow. The company is sitting on a bunch of cash and they're developing new mines. They've got a pipeline of new mines to develop, two new ones. And why I had chosen to pick them when I did was I noticed that they were having a short-term cup and handle. And I picked them when they were trading down around the 50-day moving average, so about $9.50. And now they're trading at $13.12. Now, again, I did not pick this company because I was looking to make a $9.50 pick that would then quickly go to $13.12. Why I picked them is the quality of the mine that they have at Segovia and the other ones in their pipeline that they're developing. Plus, the leader of the company is Neil Woodyer, and this isn't his first rodeo. He has built companies like an Aris into much larger companies during his career. Very talented guy, very talented team, exceptionally good mine, and those are the reasons that I like Aris Mining and all the companies you should do your homework on. Now, Equinox Gold, I got to spell it right. EQ, oh, there it is, EQX. Equinox Gold, I'm going to use the Toronto listing, so these are Canadian dollars. And I picked them back here. I think it was around here, around $10.50 or so. They closed today at $14.33. So why I picked them then was because they had gone through some growing pains at their new mine called uh, the name escapes me, Greenstone. And then they changed management. They brought in an extremely talented miner, worked for majors, built other success stories, is a really great operator. And almost immediately, he made a difference at the Greenstone mine to get it back on track and moving towards ramping it up to full commercial production. And at the same time, they're developing or they're starting to pour gold on another important Canadian mine called Valentine, the Valentine Gold Mine. It's also been known as the Valentine Lake Mine. It's in Newfoundland. Those two mines will create them, double their production, and also have them producing over 1 million ounces of gold. So if you use current prices, they're going to be making a lot of free cash flow. Now, in order for Equinox to have bought out Calibre Mining, which owned the Valentine Lake mine that Darren Hall was the leader of, recently, they had to take on about $1 billion of debt. So when they get these two projects into full commercial production, they're going to be making a lot of free cash flow and they're going to be able to pay down that debt very rapidly. And so it's a very exciting thing to see let's say about a 500,000 ounce producer be able to double or a bit better than double their production. And doing that while the price of gold is at records and I think is going a lot higher. So this company has a great story. And Equinox, do your homework on Equinox. All right. The next, my final mid tier is Orla Mining. Now, people that have watched my reports for a long time will know that I first started picking this company way back when they were about a $3 stock. They closed today at $15.76. And why I like this company so much is that they have the Camino Rojo project in Mexico, which is a very good mine. It's a free cash flow machine. But then they bought an asset from Newmont. Earlier, when I was talking about Newmont, I talked about them selling off their non-core mines, and Orla was a beneficiary of that because they got it at a good one of their mines at a good price. And what may not be a core asset for a company like a Newmont could be a company maker or at least a company enhancer in a big way for a company the size of Orla Mining. And Orla also has another project in Nevada that they're getting permits on, and they'll start construction of that. So when you look at Camino Rojo, their project, the mine they bought from Newmont in Ontario, and then the Nevada asset, the Nevada Development Project. This company has a very good um, growth profile going forward. They could also be an acquisitive company because their bottom line is looking pretty darn good. Their balance sheet is looking pretty darn good and only going to get better, especially with higher gold prices. And so I'm a big fan of Orla. Now, they've been kind of going sideways for the past few months, but I think this recent breakout above the 50-day moving average is a very good indicator. And I think you're going to start to see that 50-day moving average going up, being pulled up by the price of the stock going up. And so I have a lot of good things to say about Orla, and that's the Orla story. Okay, so now I'm giving myself another signal so I can put in the notes later. Now I'm going to go into the junior gold miners. And I've talked about a bunch of very big companies. Now I'm going to start talking about a very little company of which I'm a shareholder of, and they are a sponsor of my shows. And what they are doing right now is when they bought the Borealis mine, it was a permitted mine. It had uh, it had a stockpile on it. It had a permitted tailings pond, and it had an ADR plant to create doré bars on the property, plus all the other infrastructure needed for mining. And they're sort of taking some baby steps to get back into production. What they're doing is they've contracted a company to come in and toll mine or crush the stockpile and put that onto the leach pad for its initial treatment of to extract the gold on the leach pad. Another important thing that they're doing is that they have other known deposits that were in past production that are permitted, but now they need to do amendments to those permits. Now, they could just go in and keep mining on the current permits, but they think that there's a possibility that they could expand those open pit oxide deposits, and they want to do that, and that's why they need these amendments. But because they're amendments to existing mining permits, they happen very fast in Nevada. So stay tuned for those kind of developments. Um, they got a lot of exploration potential. They acquired another company not too long ago, and that company has great synergies with their Borealis mine because it's the same kind of oxide system that they can bring the concentrates down. It's not far away. They can bring the concentrates down to the ADR plant at the Borealis mine in Nevada and get doré bars from that. Plus, they've got exploration potential on those two assets that they bought as well. So they've got a very good, they're just a new gold miner, a new small gold miner, junior in Nevada, but they have a profile to grow into a much bigger company. They got a great management team. Plus, the chairman of the company is Bob Buckins, who was the founder of Kinross that grew from a tiny little junior gold miner into a what is now a major gold miner. And so they've got great advisors, they've got great projects, they got a great shareholder roster. Rob McEwen owns about 15% of the company. Eric Sprott owns about 8 or 9% of the company. Management owns a big significant shares position as well. So they got a lot of great things going for them. And that is the Borealis story. Next up is Luca Mining. Uh, Luca. There's my Luca. And this is a junior gold and silver miner, and they also produce base metals. So they're a precious and base metal producer, and they're making serious efforts to increase their profitability and increase their production and bring down their costs of production. And I like the assets that they have, and I like that they're a junior precious metal miner when the precious metals look to go a lot higher. So this will all help their bottom line and their growth prospects. They traded right around their 50-day moving average here and then had a significant breakout. They've been trading at their 50-day moving average again recently and have had an important breakout. And I think that they're primed to go up significantly higher than their recent highs. And so, yeah, Luca has a great group of assets, good management team, great management team that's going to increase the production, bring down their costs, and I think they got a great future as a junior gold miner that can grow into a much bigger junior gold miner. All right. Now, McEwen Mining is an interesting company for several reasons. One of those reasons is that it's the leader of the company is Rob McEwen, who's put a couple $100 million of his money into the company by buying stock. And how he made his wealth is he was the founder and builder of Gold Corp to its great success. And they are why I say they're interesting for a few reasons is they're currently a junior gold miner that's producing, let's say, about 135,000 ounces of gold in 2025. They are also increasing their production because they just are cutting ground and building the underground workings for a new mine called Stock that will come into production in 2026. And the plan is that to grow to around a 250,000 ounce per year producer over the next few years. And in addition to that, they've got great exploration going on at their various projects, mainly in Ontario and in Nevada. And in addition to all that, so they've got a great story as a junior gold miner. But they also own one of the best undeveloped copper mines in the world. It's in the top 10. I think it's number 7 or 8 as far as size. And it's also in the lowest cost quartile and so collectively, that is a fantastic asset that every major mining company wants to get into the copper mining business because they see the supply chain is weak and they see that the demand is growing. And so you get a junior gold miner that I think is undervalued for their current production and not even considering higher gold prices that will help their bottom line as well as increasing their production and bringing down their costs. But then you kind of get a undeveloped, world-class undeveloped copper project as a kicker. So they are, I consider them one of my tremendous value proposition stories and picks. And it's nice to see that they've recently been getting recognized for that. They went through a 50 day, or a Golden Cross here back in early July, and they broke above the 50-day moving average in May, late May, was trading well above the 50-day moving average until about early August. They traded right at the 50-day moving average for a very short period of time, maybe a couple of weeks, and have made another important breakout. So this breakout, I believe, is sort of a recognition of the tremendous value proposition that I see for McEwen Mining or McEwen Inc. Stock chart still calls them McEwen Mining Inc. They've actually changed their name to McEwen Inc. And so I still think of them as McEwen Mining. One of these days I'll remember to always call them McEwen Inc. But what is very nice about this recent performance is I think the quality of their assets are starting to get recognized. The value proposition that they offer is starting to get recognized, but I still think that they are significantly undervalued relative to the quality of their junior gold mining asset alone and that's you're basically getting a world-class copper development project as a kicker. I like those kind of kickers and do your homework on McEwen Mining or McEwen Inc. My gosh, I'll have to get that right one of these days. All right, so my next junior gold miner is Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. I can't remember exactly when I picked them, but I think they were trading at about 80 cents. I tend to pick them when they get down on their 50-day moving average. So my guess is I picked them somewhere around here, but you'll have to go to my YouTube channel or my Substack to do a search for Sierra Madre, and you'll find the first time I talked about them. But I didn't again, I didn't pick them because I thought they would be a 50% gainer. I picked them because I think they'll be significantly more than that. Now, it's always nice to see them get a 50% gain very rapidly after I pick them, but again, here, that's not why I picked them. Um, they're a junior gold and silver miner with a great pipeline to increase their production and reduce their costs. And by doing that, that gives them a better balance sheet. And with a better balance sheet, they can go out and look at other assets, maybe that aren't interesting to a major gold and silver miner or even a mid-tier, but could be a very good asset for a company like a Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. So the main reasons I picked them is because of the quality of their production and the way management is their business plan to move the company forward. Uh, and that in a gold and silver bull market, where we start to see record highs for both of those metals, it's a great time to be building a junior gold and silver miner into a bigger company. And that's what I see happening for Sierra Madre Gold and Silver. And that's why I picked them. And do your homework on that. So I'm moving through here pretty quickly. That's my junior gold miners. So I've looked after my majors, my mid tiers, and my junior gold miners. Now I got my developers to talk about. And the first developer, again, these are by alphabetically, but this is one of my favorites of my developers, and the company is Amex Exploration. Now, some will accuse me of bias because they are a sponsor of my reports, um, but that's not why they are one of my favorite picks as a developer. This company has a series of deposits in a resources, but the key one is their growth engine that is their Champagne zone. It is currently it's about 1 million+ ounces if you use measured and indicated and inferred, and the average grade is well over 10 grams per ton. About 850,000 ounces of that, which is in the measured and indicated, has an average grade of 16.2 grams per ton of gold. You just do not find those kind of assets on offer very often these days. And it's not just that it's a great undeveloped high grade mine of the future that's exciting. It's in Quebec, which is one of the best mining jurisdictions in the world. It is also in a right beside, like literally 5 minutes outside of town, uh, in a town that was built for a past producing mine in the area, Normatel. And so they're in a great jurisdiction. They got a great asset. But what really excites me the most, and I think is responsible for their performance since April, is the path that they are taking to get the project into production. There's a few moving parts in that. One is that they want to do a bulk sample to extract the gold, or to do a more thorough analysis of the average grade doing bulk samples. Then they're also doing a preliminary economic assessment to assess toll milling of their Champagne zone. And what toll milling is you mine the material at your property, and then you take it to a nearby mill and have the gold extracted from that rock. Now, a lot of companies would love to do that in the world, but they can't because they don't have the nearby mills that need more feed. This project is in the Abitibi region of Canada, which is one of the most prolific gold mining jurisdictions anywhere in the world. I think the statistic is that there's been something like 200 million ounces produced of gold from the Abitibi, and they've got the next great one, in my opinion. And The idea there is you use the toll milling for a few years and use the profit from that to then build your own mill on the Foran project that is Amex's property. And so you look at that business plan, you look at the quality of the asset, the availability of mills in the area to do toll milling, and they've got a very compelling story. And that's the Amex story. They also got great exploration potential. They've got other deposits that they can add to. And what's exciting about those is that if the Champagne zone is able to carry the project into production and build a mill, they can use that mill for their satellite deposits, which equate to about another 1.5 million ounces, and use that mill. So the project, the other satellite deposits, they don't have to pass the same threshold as if you were going to build a mill for them exclusively. So they would have to carry um, um, much different economics if they had to carry the cost of building the mill and bringing it into production. So this makes for a very compelling story, and I advise you to do your homework on them. All right, Arizona Metals uh, is a company that I picked after they had been punished pretty significantly. They disappointed the market because they put out a resource, and I think the market was looking for a much bigger resource than they came out with. And the stock has been hammered all the way down to 67 cents, or even less, 62 cents. Now, why I like this story is it is um, it's a turnaround story for me, and it's probably one of my best turnaround picks that I have. And what I think that they're not what they did is not being well understood. They did a they did a resource estimate in a conservative fashion because they wanted to quickly do a preliminary economic assessment on it. So you can't do these arm wavy kind of resource estimates that I think the market was hoping for. You have to have pretty tight conservative resource so it can pass the economic evaluation test in a preliminary economic assessment. And so this created an opportunity. Now, in any turnaround, you got to be patient with them. I mean, I have no concern with having picked them at about 80 cents and they've traded below that price. But I like their turnaround prospects because I like their project. It has a resource on it. It's going to do a preliminary economic assessment. They're doing drilling to increase the size of the resource. It's a volcanogenic massive sulfide deposit. So where there's one, there's often more, and they come in clusters. And so I like the Arizona Metals story as a turnaround pick. Do your homework on them. That's their story. Blackrock Silver is a silver developer with 100+ million ounce resource. So they passed that first threshold that investors look for in a copper or a silver developer. The rule of thumb is you want to see them get over 100 million ounces of silver because in that rule of thumb analysis, that would give them 10 years of production at 10 million ounces of annual production. Now, that could be a very lucrative situation because they also have a very low cost of production in their preliminary economic assessment. And therefore, this is a very attractive asset that I think has a lot of blue sky ahead of it. Some of the blue sky is that they're doing expansion drilling to increase the size of their resource. I think, if memory serves me correctly, they anticipate having that preliminary economic assessment out by the first quarter of 2026. And I think that they're going to continue to drill, drill, drill because there's lots of room to grow this to much larger. But I'm happy with what they already have when you look at the cost of bringing it into production, how quickly it can pay back the capital cost to build it, the internal rate of return. This is a very exciting project, and it's in Nevada. And it's one of the highest grade undeveloped silver assets in the world. So this makes for a very compelling story. They went through a golden cross back here in early July. They have broke out through the 50-day moving average in May. They're trading well above their 50-day moving average since they broke over the 50-day. The trajectory of their 50-day moving average is very bullish. And just making a note here because I got to buy some of this stock. um, yeah, I think that they got a lot of blue sky ahead of them. And I often look, well, I always look for a couple things in stock charts. Three key things: a golden cross, how a company trades above its 50-day moving average, and the trajectory of the 50-day moving average. And all of these things are green lights to me that they've got a lot of blue sky ahead of them for the project and the stock performance. And so BlackRock is one you want to take a look at. The next one is Emperor Metals. Metals. And here is their listing. So they had a really nice run here when they announced their resource estimate. And then it came back down to the 50-day moving average and traded around there. I think they're ready for a breakout because this is a very interesting project. It's already got a substantial resource on it. It's got the ability to grow that resource. But because they are also in the Abitibi, I talked about this earlier when I was talking about Amex. They have a lot of mills around them that are underutilized and need feed to get them up to full capacity. And so this company is in a great address to be able to follow that business plan to toll mill their production, their gold production from their project in the Abitibi. And I love this kind of a business plan. And I think that they're somewhat an undiscovered gem. Now they've been more discovered since their lows in December. They're getting better discovery, but I still think that this company is very underappreciated for the quality of their asset and being in such a great address where they can take advantage of the business plan to toll mill in nearby mills in the Abitibi. So, big fan of this company, and you should take a look at them. Now, Foran Mining is a relatively new pick. FOM, I think is it? Yeah. Foran Mining is a relatively new pick, and they are developing a copper, zinc, gold, silver system in Saskatchewan. They're about 50% finished the building of their new mine. So they've got the cash, they're working towards full commercial or building it out and then bringing it into production. And this makes them in what I call the sweet spot of the right side of the Lassonde curve. There's two big run-ups in the price of a stock. One is when there's a discovery made, and the other is when you bring a project into production. That's the right side of the Lassonde curve. And there's a special part of that Lassonde curve I picked Silvercrest that was taken over. I picked Mag Silver before they went into production when they were in the sweet spot. And this is my latest Lassonde curve sweet spot of the right side of the Lassonde curve. Now, I'm very encouraged by the fact that Pierre Lassonde himself is a significant shareholder in this company, but another important shareholder is Agnico Eagle. And Agnico Eagle, what really made them started them in the big success that they are today was they had a mine that was very much like the one that Foran Mining is developing. And as you can see, that often happens is as they're in the getting towards building a mine, they can often get beaten down. And I picked them, I think it was, I want to say about 280-ish. Now, again, I didn't pick them because I thought that they would go up 10 or 15%. I picked them because I think that they are going to go up the right side of the Lassonde curve, and I picked them when they're in the sweet spot just before they bring a project into production. In 2026, they'll bring this mine into production, and I think onwards and upwards from there. So I think they got a lot of blue sky ahead of them. No, I note that their 50-day moving average has bottomed recently and is starting to move up as the stock has broken through the 50-day moving average. I think that this company is probably about a month or so away from a golden cross and then onwards and upwards from there. So do your homework on Foran Mining. Now, Generation Mining, GENM, has a project in Ontario that is gone through the feasibility study. It's gone through its permitting. And so now it goes into that period when they would get all the financing to build the mine. Now, why I like this one particularly is because in addition to copper, it's the what runs the economics of the project is a combination of copper and palladium. It also has platinum and gold. The platinum and the gold are lower and not as important as the copper and the palladium. Now, I'm very bullish on both copper and palladium, but what I have a harder time finding is a company that is involved, especially on the platinum and palladium side of things. There really are not a lot to look for. And so these are the characteristics that make it unique to me. Now, they went through a cup and handle. Here's the left side of the cup. Here's the bottom of the cup. Here's the right side of the cup. And here's the handle. They've been going sideways in that handle, and I think that they are ready to make a significant breakout. There really are not a lot of projects like this, and the world needs more copper. It also needs platinum and palladium, and it's also got gold in there as well. And so it's a multi-metal mine. There's not a lot of those to look at. I like the mix of their copper and palladium, plus the platinum and gold production as well, which makes them, a very attractive company in the development discount window of the Lassonde curve. Now, in the past, investors would stay away from companies in the development discount window, and I think that you have to consider what kind of a market we're in as to why you want to look at companies in the development discount window. In a more buoyant market like we're in now, I wouldn't say it's a bull market for juniors, but it is a more buoyant market. Well, the valuations of the companies can be a lot better than if you're in a bear market for metals, stocks. Okay. So that's why I think you should take a look at this company now, even though they're in the development discount window. And some of the catalysts, they could have a lot of catalysts in the not too distant future. Just a couple months ago, I did an interview with their CEO, and you can find that on my YouTube channel. And he does a great job, Jamie Levy, of telling the story. And so check that interview out to learn more about generation mining. Now, I also have McEwen Mining in here as a developer because of their copper project in Argentina. As I mentioned when I was talking about them earlier, it's one of the top 10 undeveloped copper projects in the world, and it's also in the lowest cost quartile. So it's an exciting project. The world needs more projects, copper development projects such as Los Azules in Argentina. And so I'm not going to talk a lot about McEwen. I talked about them earlier in the junior gold miners section. So scroll earlier or use that bar at the bottom of the video there. I don't even know what that thing's time bar. Use the time bar to go back and listen to what I had to say about McEwen. So I won't even bother pulling up their chart because I did earlier. Meridian. Meridian Mining has a very exciting project in Brazil. It's a VMS system, and they've got a huge land package that basically covers an entire belt. Okay. They've been focusing most of their work on two deposits on that belt because they want to bring it into production. What makes it exciting is that for an open pit VMS, it has a very high grade of copper and gold in it. And that could be a very lucrative situation with a relatively low capex to bring it into production. And so we got a lot of great things going for them. They're doing a lot of drilling to expand on their two key deposits and moving it towards production. I would note that they went through a golden cross back here in March and have consistently, they've only dipped down to the 50-day moving average a few times since then. Recently, they've had a significant breakout because they had some good news out on their projects. And I like the trajectory of this 50-day moving average, which when I see this, it tells me that it's going higher and quite bullish, like aggressively higher. Like when I see that 50-day moving average moving at a slight angle, well, I can get very bullish about them. When they're at a steep angle like this, it always tells me that the stock has the potential to go a lot higher and quickly. And so those are the characteristics of Meridian. So have a look at Meridian Mining. Newfound Gold is a relatively new company. And why I like them is they are moving towards bringing their project in Newfoundland into production. And they've got a really good team. There's been recently a pretty significant change of management that they brought in mine builders and very good mine builders at that, have done it before. It's not their first rodeo, and they're moving towards bringing that into production. They've also been acquisitive lately. They bought a company that has a mill that they can use to produce to process their material, and they bought a junior that had ground a large land package around them on their key Queensway project. And so, sorry, I have to have a little drink there. My throat's getting a little tight. Bottomed out back here at around $1.37. I picked them here before they went through their golden cross. They've now gone through that golden cross. And with all the development stuff that they're working on, I think that this company will have a very good news flow, the kind of news that can be market moving. And I noticed recently that this 50-day moving average is starting to go up at a steep trajectory. So I like all of those things combined when it comes to newfound gold. One of the biggest things is it's an orogenic gold system, and these systems are known to have very high grade, which they've already drilled into, and they can have very long mine lives. There's like I think that this part of the world, Newfoundland, could be like a version of the Abitibi or Abitibi 2.0. And we're really in the earliest, like, it's like rolling the clock back 100 years to the Abitibi. And there is one big mine going in by Equinox. I talked about them earlier, called Valentine Lake, and that's on one big geological feature. And they have a parallel feature where they have their Queensway project, and that's very much like the Abitibi. There are these important crustal cracks in the earth that the gold-bearing fluids use to make their path of least resistance towards the surface. And they know that they have this kind of a situation in Newfoundland, and these are reasons why I think that Newfoundland could be Abitibi 2.0, and Newfound Gold it could be the benefactor or one of the companies that leads that charge, let's say. And that's why I like Newfound Gold. Okay, Nouveau Minerals, uh, NMC, is a relatively new company. It only started trading in December of 2024, but it's a real undiscovered gem. They were able to do a deal with Glencore, one of the world's largest miners, and Glencore was producing on their project until 2022. It's a huge land package, 1,300 square kilometers in the Abitibi, but it has a 60-year life of mining for base metals. So it was owned by base metal companies recently by Glencore, and they weren't interested in the gold potential. So then, Nuvo has two paths to growth. One is to bring the base metal operations back into production. They've got a mill there, they've got all the mining infrastructure, they got everything. They need to permit a new tailings facility, but that's about it. So they've got these mines that are not mined out. One of them is the Brace Mac McLeod mine. And it was known that there was a gold occurrence right beside the underground workings for the Brace Mac McLeod underground base metal mine. But they never bothered drilling this vein that had gold in it. So Nuvo did, and this is why they moved up like this so aggressively. And their discovery hole had a hit a quartz vein with a lot of visible gold in it. That discovery hole came back with a very nice grades to it as well, and they're doing additional drilling as around it along strike. And they're not doing really tiny step outs. They're doing some 100, 150 meter step outs because they think this structure that hosts that quartz vein could be very big. And so they're drilling extensions of pretty big step outs from the discovery. I love to see companies do that because it tells you that the geology is right and that the company is aggressive and they're not messing around. So Nuvo, which I'm a shareholder of, has two growth drivers. One is to bring the base metal mine back into production. Secondly, the gold discovery that they've recently made. Look at the trajectory of this 50-day moving average. That is just outstanding. It went through the Golden Cross back in August, and it's now trading right around that 50-day moving average. And it's got me thinking I'm going to have to mark this one down because I got to increase my position in Nuvau very soon here. Hopefully, in the next couple of days. Don't go front running me now, you hear? But yeah, I like their growth prospects on the base metal side of thing as well as for high grade gold. When you make a discovery of high grade gold in the Abitibi, it tends to create a lot of interest because, grassroots discoveries in the Abitibi are not easy to find. And it certainly looks like they have one. And that tends to get a lot of people's attention because of the rich history that Abitibi has had as one of the most important gold mining districts in the world. So they've got a grassroots gold discovery. They've got a base metal story to bring a past producer back into production that was just in production back in 2022. And everybody says, well, if it was so great, why did Glencore get rid of it? Well, they got rid of it because for a huge company like Glencore, it's a non-core asset. It's really not meaningful to a company like them, but to a tiny $40 million valuation, 40 or $50 million valuation like Nuvau, it's a company maker. And so that's the Nuvau story. All right, I'm going to close it off for my developers with one of my favorite developers, which is Vizsla Silver. Some will accuse me of being biased, calling it my favorite because they're a sponsor of my reports, and they have been for well over a year. Along that way, I've been able, their sponsors help me to be able to do the work I do and offer my reports at no charge to my audience. But what I also like about having sponsors such as Vizsla Silver is I get to do a bunch of interviews with their management, which gives my audience a front row seat to the growth that they are going through, the developments that they're going through, and they can be well informed about the company. Now, you do not find project development projects like this hardly ever. This is a very unique development company. And why I say that is if you use current prices of gold and silver, the internal rate of return is well over triple digits. Okay. Even if you use the base case, which had much lower gold and silver prices in their preliminary economic assessment, they still had an 85% internal rate of return. That catches my attention, and that's why I started picking them before they were even a sponsor. And since then, they've just kept on moving forward and coming out with great results, and they're doing that as as the price of gold and silver are doing very well. And I think that they've got the potential to be the next major silver producer. And I really think that they are a unicorn, a silver unicorn. In the tech sector, they talk about unicorns. These are big tech companies that start out small, had great growth, and are now household names. And I think Vizsla Silver has that kind of potential as a silver unicorn. And just amazing project at Panuco. They've got other projects near there. They're an acquisitive kind of company. And yeah, I think they've got the potential to grow into the next major silver miner. That's why I like Vizsla. Keep in mind that I'm biased because they are a sponsor of my reports. And so do your homework. And a good way to do that homework is not only have I interviewed, and you can find these on my YouTube channel, not only have I interviewed Mike Connor several times, who's the CEO of the company. But I've also recently, and about 3 weeks ago, I interviewed their VP of exploration because I wanted him to come on and tell us about the exploration potential that is still wide open. So not only are they developer, but they've got this fantastic exploration story as well. So they're kind of a hybrid for you there, folks. A great silver developer story and great exploration potential as well. So do that homework and check out those interviews. All right. I've gone through my developers. I'm moving along quite nicely. Now I've got my explorers. And I always start out my explorers with my highest conviction um, gold explorer with an important discovery. I originally started covering this company back when they were about 60 cents a share. So I think it was back in 2020-ish, or maybe it was 2021. I can't remember. You'll have to look that up. But uh, cup and handle, really serious breakout. 2024 and 2025 have been exceptionally good for the company. Late or early 2025, they actually had assay results out on the best hole that they ever hit at their discovery called Sherbet in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia, and it sent their stock racing higher. And I mean, that's not why I'm a shareholder in the company and think so highly of it. I mean, these are nice surprises to have along the way, but it's the combat. It's collectively what they have drilled. They've drilled a couple hundred holes on this discovery, and I think it's something like 90% of them have visible gold to the naked eye on their property. In fact, go to some of their recent news releases and you'll see my favorite map, which shows all of the occurrences of visible gold in their drilling at the Sherbet discovery. It's very unique. I mean, I've been in exploration for 32 years, and I honestly can't remember any company having that much visible gold spread out, widespread over an area that's like from one end to the other, like over a kilometer and a half, and side to side over a kilometer. And inside that area, it's just dotted with visible gold all over it. And I think it's a world-class discovery in the making that is still not well understood by, a huge audience of people that are into gold explorers. I still think that they're an undiscovered gem, even though they're trading at around $3 now. And I originally started following them and reporting on them when they were like 60 cents a share. So they're like 5 times that. And I still think that they're an not well understood, undiscovered gem. Again, I cannot stress enough how during my 32 years in the exploration business, how I can't remember any project having that much visible gold widespread over such a big area. And it's a grassroots discovery. This project was covered up by snowpack and glaciers until those receded, and the team of Goliath saw outcropping rock, sampled that, and saw, wow, there's really good grades in here. Then they started drilling, and they've been drilling away ever since. And they've got a very exceptional, high grade gold, grassroots gold discovery in the Golden Triangle of British Columbia. And I think it could one day be talked about in the same breath as the Eskay Creek mine, which was one of the greatest high grade gold mines ever and really put the Golden Triangle on the map. They found that back in the 1980s. and it was just a spectacular mine. I was just in my teens, but I still remember that discovery because as a guy in Vancouver who liked to read the newspapers, I remember hearing a lot about Murray Pezim, the guy who was the CEO, and that fantastic Eskay Creek discovery up in the Golden Triangle. All right, I still have several explorers to talk about, and the show has already run a fairly long time. But I really wanted to present all of my companies for my audience that wants to know all of my current picks. So if you don't mind, the rest of the explorers, I'm going to try to run through them fairly quickly, give you the really rapid um, uh, um, uh, elevator pitch. And so here we go. Almadex. Almadex is in Nevada looking for a porphyry run by an extremely talented father-son team that has found mines, sold mines, and now they're trying to do it again. They're kind of a prospect generator on steroids. Most prospect generators, they get a project, they do some surface sampling, they partner it out to somebody else, either a junior or a major, and they let them come in and see what's there. In this case, this team owns six of their own drill rigs, and they go in and they drill their prospects before they look to bring a partner in. And I think they've got the makings of an important porphyry discovery in Nevada and run by the kind of people that if they do make a great discovery, they will get a tremendous amount of interest. And so that is the Almadex story. All righty. Next up is Argenta. Argenta is a relatively new pick. And why I picked them is because they've got a high grade gold discovery, or sorry, silver discovery in Argentina that already had a 50 million ounce resource on it before they got it. Now they're increasing the size of it. They started trading in October of 2024. They've gone through a cup and handle. Really nice, nice formation for a brand new company. And look at how they've had their cup and handle, and now onwards and upwards from there. And what's been driving that movement up the right side of the cup is the drilling results that they've had. Just really barn burner numbers. And these epithermal veins, they come in clusters. They've only been focusing on the one where they got the resource. And there's many more that need to be drilled on the property. I really like their prospects to grow into a much bigger resource and a much bigger company. And that's the Argenta elevator pitch. Now, Canadian Gold Corp, I'm not going to go a lot into because they're about to be taken over by McEwen Inc., one of my picks that I talked about earlier. They've got a great project in Manitoba, but you're it's going to get taken over, so it's going to be part of McEwen Mining when it gets taken over. So what am I going to say about it right now? Not much other than I can't wait until belongs to McEwen. I think it's a really undiscovered gem. Now, part of the reason that they are selling is because they don't have the management with the mining experience that McEwen Inc. does, especially on an orogenic gold system like what they have. Rob McEwen is famous because of the Gold Corp. Gold Corp was a junior miner, struggling junior miner that drilled deeper into the orogenic gold system in Red Lake, hit the Bonanza Zone. That was such a huge success that they 10x their production and became one of the best performing gold stocks during the last great gold bull market. And I think he's got an asset here that could be a Gold Corp 2.0 kind of story. And so I've been a big fan of Canadian Gold Corp since they were a lot cheaper than where they are now, and I like the prospects of the growth of their asset by being owned by McEwen Inc. All right, Dryden Gold. Dryden Gold is in Ontario, about I think it's about a hour or 2 hour drive from Red Lake, Ontario. It has all the same geological characteristics of Red Lake, Ontario, but it was a patchwork of project ground that was owned by many um, companies. And so this company was able to consolidate that big district into one company. And they've been doing a lot of drilling and they're getting some very good, very high grade, and they're starting to get a real serious understanding of what is controlling the gold deposition on the high grade on their project. And they just recently did a financing. They got a lot of cash. They're going to be doing a lot of drilling. They got a great young lady in Maura Kolb, who's the president of the company, who's leading the charge on and why she's an important part of the story is she worked for Goldcorp and was responsible for she ran their exploration, and she was responsible for finding a lot of gold in Red Lake. And now she's trying to do that with Dryden Gold. I think she's gonna. And yeah, take a look at Dryden. Golden Cross is a relatively new pick for me. I recently did an interview with their CEO. They've only been trading for a few months and have been performing very good right out of the gate. Now, why are they performing very good right out of the gate? Well, they're well financed for one. Two, they're not very far from one of the greatest high grade orogenic gold mines in the world called Fosterville in Australia. They're about 30 kilometers from it. They've got all the same geological characteristics, including significant historical production 100 years ago on their property. That it's just dotted with historical mining locations on their property. They recently started drilling it. They've got a bunch of assays pending. Stay tuned. I like their chances to make an important discovery. I think this could be one of the companies that goes from a new pick to a important discovery. Like when I talk about gold explorers, I talk about the real special ones are what I call gold explorers with an important discovery. And I think they could move into that category probably the fastest of any pick I've ever made since I've been reporting on the sector since 2005. So do your homework on Golden Cross, and a good way to do that is to go to that recent interview I did with their CEO. You can find that on my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and do a Google or do a YouTube search for Rocks and Stocks News, and you'll find it. Hercules Metals. Hercules Metals just had very good news out. And yesterday, or when was it? Monday, I think. Checking my notes here. Or maybe it was Tuesday or yeah, or today, Wednesday, earlier today. And as you can see, the market liked it. It was up 8% to 81 cents. They're looking for a copper porphyry in Idaho. They've already drilled into it. They already know that they've got copper, but what they announced today was a very good hit and it's sort of going through a transition. They made the initial discovery a couple of years ago, but when you find these porphyries, sometimes that can be the start of the challenges, not the sort of, oh, wow, we made a great discovery. And the rest is history from there. sometimes these things can take a lot of work to figure them out. But when you figure them out, they can be massive. And what they've been doing to try to figure that out prior to these recent drill results and the current drilling that they're doing is they did a detailed model using geophysical surveys, and this gave them an interpretation of the optimal way to drill the system. And this very first hole from their 2025 drilling campaign says that that model is working, the geophysics are working, and they're getting good results with the good, great results with the drilling. And it's still got a lot, they got a huge amount of area in that model to test. And so they got a lot of drilling to do. They could be drilling for another month or two. Then they'll wait, then they'll shut her down for a few months and then get drilling again. But during that whole time, they could be from now until the next drill program in 2026, they could be coming out with assay results because, again, they're doing a lot of drilling right now. They got more drilling to do before the winter sets in, and then they still got all those acids. They just reported their first hole from their 2025 campaign. So stay tuned for more news from Hercules. IDEX is right beside them, and they recently had assay results. Now, the market didn't really like those assay results. I think they were looking for higher grade, but I pointed out when I talked about those results that it looks to me like they're on the edge of a breccia pipe. You can think of a breccia pipe like broken up rock, like it's shaped like a cone. So if you drill down the edge of the cone, you're not really in the guts of the cone, if you will. They got another hole that is through the center of the cone, if you will. That one I think could be a game changer. So stay tuned for more results from this company. I think it got probably overbought on enthusiasm and then oversold on the results on the news. So I think this creates an opportunity, and I'm just circling their name because I'm going to buy some stock in this one. Inventus, very exciting IVS. Inventus is a really undiscovered gem for me. They're looking, well, they're not looking, they know they have a conglomerate gold system in Ontario. Now, these conglomerate gold systems, you can sort of think of them like the bottom of a lake, if you will. And one of the greatest gold mine ever in the world is the Witwatersrand in South Africa. And it is one of these conglomerate systems as well. They can be very big and be mined for decades and decades. And these guys are just sort of unlocking the potential of that. And how they're doing that is because the system comes right to the surface where they get about 5 grams per ton of gold. Now it's these reefs or can be flat lying, not very much dip to them, but thin. They're not these, 100-meter systems. They're like a few meters, right? But you then, because they come right to surface and they got, 3+ grams, and potentially you could be looking at a quarter of a gram cost to get the gold out of the ground. These can be very lucrative because a gram of gold these days is trading for like 120 some dollars or more per gram. So if it only costs you like 10, $15 to mine it, get the gold out of there, and your profit is 2.5 grams, that can make for a very lucrative situation. And yet they're not very well covered by, I think I might be the only one covering them, or let's say only a few guys like me are covering the company. But I think it's got a really good project and they're bulk sampling it right now. And I think they've got a lot of news come out in the not too distant future. So Inventus Mining is one for you to take a look at. Kootenay Silver is a high-grade silver discovery company in Mexico. They recently went through a golden cross. They have a high-grade epithermal vein cluster in Mexico. These clusters are known to have several mines on them. They've sort of been focusing in on a few of those veins. They've got a bunch more that they need to explore. Just in the ones that they've been focusing on, they already have a resource that looks like it could get up well over 100 million ounces and of high grade silver. I love these kind of stories. I think that there's still an undiscovered gem. They went through a golden cross here in July. They're now broken out and well above their 50-day moving average. The trajectory of their 50-day moving average is very bullish. I think they've got a lot of upside ahead of them. I just circled them because I'm going to buy a little bit of Kootenay silver as well. The next company is a brand new pick for me. Last week I picked this company. Uh, they're called Mithril Silver and Gold. Look at this little patchy trader that's only been public for a few months since October of 2024. They trade by appointment, that's called, when you see all this patchy stuff here. But I really think this company is an undiscovered gem. They've got a high grade gold and they're a high grade gold and silver explorer in Mexico. They've got two drill rigs currently drilling holes. So they've got a lot of pending results. I think that they're going to come out with some really good numbers. And if they do, this will go from a patchy trader to an aggressive trader very quickly. And I really like the Mithril story. I've actually shared emails with their management. I'm going to try and get their CEO on for an interview. So I'm going to leave it at that. I recently picked them, so you can go back in my shows and find that where I talked about them more significantly. Another company that I've talked a lot about is Norsemont. I originally picked them when they were trading at about 60 cents, and they've moved up quite dramatically since then. Uh, Close today at 89 cents. Recently did a financing that brought in the likes of Rob McEwen, Quinton Henney, Crescat Capital, Larry Lepard, Paul Matisic. When you see those kind of names coming into a company, it's because there's a high quality project in that company. And I think it is one of the best value propositions I can find for a junior. Why I say that is they've got 2.7 million ounces of gold already in the resource. And it's still got a lot of room open to for exploration. And I think they've got the ability to go in there with a really strategically planned drill program that could double their resource. The reason that I say that is the epithermal veins that brought the gold up into the system, uh, which is the whole resources in the first 80 meters, on a project that already has been a producer in the past, folks. It's got the permits it needs, all that sort of stuff. But it has been drilled with a lot of holes using vertical holes into vertically emplaced gold systems. That's not optimal. You go in there with some angled holes and you can, I think, very rapidly increase the size of the deposit. I think it can easily double just in the area that they know they have. And then there's room to grow beyond that quite dramatically. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of Norsemont. Do your homework on Norsemont. NOM is their symbol. I've talked a lot about them in recent shows, so You can go, I've talked about them on practically every show recently. So just go to my YouTube channel and you'll hear why I'm an enthusiastic fan of Norsemont. Okay, next company is Pacifica. I got another company for you here that is like a brand new publicly traded company that's only been trading for less than a year. They've come to life of late. And part of the reason that they've come to life is they've got a high grade silver project in Mexico. It's a cluster of epithermal veins that are underexplored. They're currently drilling 8,000 meters. They were able to raise millions of dollars from the likes of Vizsla Silver bought shares in there to fund the company. First Majestic, a major silver miner, bought shares in the company to fund their exploration. Silver Corp and Eric Sprott also helped them build up a big cash position so that they can do this drilling program and bring this project forward. It's a really exciting project to me. Uh, you know, I'm in good company because when you got people like or groups like Vizsla Silver, First Majestic, Silver Corp, Eric Sprott, and a really strong management team, everything is coming together very impressively for Pacifica. I only picked them like recently. I think they were trading at about 95 cents. They've traded as high as $1.25, currently trading at $1.10. I'm really looking forward to seeing assay results from this company. And that is the Pacifica Silver story. Next up, and I'm getting close to the end here, folks. I'm in the home stretch now. Power Metallic Mines doing a big drill program, very well funded, funded by people like Robert Friedland, Rob McEwen, Gina Reinhardt, and a whole slew of ultra wealthy investors that invest in mining companies. And, not too long ago, they were a sleepy little 20-cent stock, traded as high as up to $2, went sideways for a while they were getting ready for their current drill program. All the assays from their current drill program are pending. They have a great discovery of super high grade copper that is a multi-metal discovery of they got copper, they got nickel, they got silver, gold, and other metals in there as well. It's a really outstanding project. It's in Canada, it's in Quebec. I think they've got a fantastic project that could grow them into a billion plus company. They're currently trading for a fraction of that. Yeah, that's the Power Metallic Mine story. PNPN is their stock symbol. Okay, QIM, Kimbaya. Gold is earlier when I was talking about my mid tiers, one of my top picks is Aris Mining, and that's because they have a great mine called Segovia. Well, right beside Segovia is Kimbaya, and they've got a project that looks like the veins that go through Segovia continue and go through Kimbaya's ground as well. Kimbaya is currently drilling and they've got pending assay results, more drilling to do, cashed up, great team. Their geologist, very talented guy. I did an interview with them a few months ago that I think you should check that out. Ricardo is a super talented guy. And yeah, take a look at Kimbaya. Rakla. Rakla Metals is looking for a Rakla is looking for a Snowline 2.0. But in their case, Snowline's in the Yukon. Rakla is in the same belt, but in the Northwest Territories. And it looks like they might have something pretty exciting there. As you can see, as they've been drilling it and showing their drill core, the stock moved up from, you know, under a dime to currently trading at 84 cents. They don't do that because of a lot of smoke and mirrors or pump and dump shows. They do it because they've got a great project and they're drilling it and they're seeing really encouraging stuff from their drilling. Assays are all pending. We don't know if they've got a great discovery yet. I think they might, but we got to get those assay results out. So take a look at Rakla. All right, Ramp Metals is a explorer that has made a discovery of high grade gold that brought them from like a 20 center all the way up to nearly a dollar 71. Then they followed that discovery hole up and didn't deliver, and the stock got hammered. Strangely enough, that when they announced those follow-up, only a handful of follow-up holes. Now, folks, you got to understand in high-grade gold systems, they're not easy to figure out. If they were, everybody would have one. They take more than a handful of holes to figure them out. Yeah, they got lucky on their discovery hole. It hit like 7.5 meters of 70 some grams per ton of gold. And then they couldn't, and then their follow-up holes didn't come out with anything like that, and the stock got hammered. But that doesn't mean they killed the project or killed the discovery. It just means they got to roll up their sleeve. But at the same time they announced those disappointing gold numbers, they also announced that they made a brand new VMS discovery about 4,000 meters from the gold discovery. And that's just like they're only a few holes into that, and they're already getting some very good numbers that totally got ignored because the market was upset about the gold numbers that they couldn't follow it up. Now, didn't follow it up in the five holes to follow-up holes doesn't mean it disappeared. 7.5 meters is 70 some grams. There's more of that down there somewhere. They just got to keep looking for it. Uh, Sometimes gold discoveries, like earlier, I talked about SK Creek. I think it was 110th hole before they found that. Now, they may have got lucky on the first hole and then not lucky for another 100 holes, but they found one of the greatest high grade gold and silver mines ever. So you got to roll up your sleeves and figure those out. And I'm not saying it's going to take them 100 holes to do it. They're learning along the way, but I like their chances. I think they've got the chances of making an important high grade gold discovery, as well as finding a cluster of VMS deposits with very high grades of copper and other metals in them. So do your homework on ramp because this sell-off, I think, has created a great opportunity. All right, two more companies. One of them is Southern Cross Gold, and Southern Cross. hmm, oh, there it is. SXGC is their symbol. This company only started trading in September of 2024 and came out of the box and made an important discovery in Australia in close proximity to both Fosterville and another of my picks called Golden Cross. And I picked Southern Cross when they came below the 50-day moving average to around $5. And today they're trading at $6.25. I picked them because they were doing a whole bunch of drilling and a bunch of assay results to come out. And I think they've got a lot of great assay results to come out, and it's going to keep that trajectory of growth growing for them. I really like seeing these cup and handles. I don't even think the right side of the handle or cup is formed yet. And if it is, my estimate is $7 and above to get the right side of the cup and handle completed, and then onwards and upwards from there. So that's the Southern Cross. And Wolf Den is my final company, not because they're last not least kind of thing, but because their name starts with a W. Wolfden. Is this the one that always gives me trouble on stock charts? Yes, it is. It's the one that I can never. Sometimes stock charts doesn't have every venture company listed in them, and that's the case with Wolfden. So I'll just switch back to gold here while I talk about Wolfden quickly. Wolfden is a tiny 10 center or somewhere around there explorer that's about to drill uh, in Nevada on an epithermal gold system that I've done my homework on and I really like it. It's not very far from another of my picks called Borealis. And yeah, I like the Wolf Den. It's Wolfden is the name of the company, Wolf Den Resources. So do a search for them. And yeah, drilling, great project in Nevada, underexplored, good team running the company. Do your homework on Wolfden. Okay, that's all my picks, folks. And as I said, they're a mix of explorers, developers, junior gold miners, and mid-tiers and majors. So it gives you a little bit of something for everybody, depending on what you are looking for. I have an audience that looks for companies from the largest majors all the way down to the junior explorers. So I like to have a good mix depending on what they're looking. Some people only want majors and they don't even care about mid tiers or juniors or explorers or developers. Others take a little bit from each, and I try to find the best in breed in each so that they can make a nice mix of those. Nonetheless, as always, do your homework, speak with your financial advisors. I am only an idea generator. I try to do homework for you and bring you good companies to do your own homework on. But that is the really important part of everything I do. I'm only kind of the start of your homework, not the end of your homework. Do that homework, understand the companies you invest in because a well-informed investor makes less emotional decisions and more logical decisions. And that's a recipe for success, no matter what sector you're in. So please do that homework. Have a great day, and we will talk to you soon.